Now we're moving on to a public comment at this time. This time is made available for comments from the public on matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Attention is called to the fact that the board is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda. Having said that, if there's anybody have any item that is not on the agenda that wanted to discuss? Say none. With that, I'll bring back. And there's no one online. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And with that, I close the public comment period and opening up to MCTC sitting as the Transportation Policy Committee. Item number 4, closed session. 4A. Report of closed session item from May 17, 2023 policy board meeting. And do we have anything to report?
There were no actions reported.
Thank you. And now we move on to item number 5, transportation consent item. Move to approve.
Second.
We have first and a second, and look for the motion to. All in favor, everybody in favor say aye. Aye. Nay. Ayes have it. Thank you. I like it. Moving along. That's fine. Item number 6, going to transportation action discussion item 6A 2023 state budget and legislative update. And
Yes, this is my item. Thank you. I have with us joining, is Gus available? Okay. So included in your package are a couple of items. One is a memo written by Gus Corey from Corey Consulting. And it's a budget update on the past couple of months related to the budget and any kind of activities that took place related to any kind of trailer bills and such. We'll get to him in a second. And then there were also a couple of other items included in your package, and that was a letter that was written to Senator Alvarado Gil, thanking her for her assistance in and her support in capping the indirect cost rate for self-help counties. There also was another letter included in your package, actually 2, recommending Tanisha Taylor for the California Transportation Commission for Executive Director. She has a history of working her way up the ladder, if you will. She used to work for the San Joaquin Council of Governments. She worked for CalCog, the California Association of Governments, and she also worked for the California Transportation Commission as Deputy Director and then Interim Director. And so we were definitely in support of recommending her for that position. She was selected at the last California Transportation Commission meeting. And so we also have a letter included congratulating her on her new appointment for the California Transportation Commission as Executive Director. And then there's another letter, since we did not have a meeting in June, just wanted to include all letters that have been written, a letter written in opposition to a RAMBULA's bill related to emission reductions. And so those were included. With that, Gus Corey is joining us today, and he'll give you a recap on the state budget, any kind of activity moving forward, some are 2-year bills, and where we're moving forward with our support or opposition.
Thank you, Director Taylor. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, commissioners. For what it's worth, I'm not sure it won't let me start my video here. It says the host has stopped it. So hope everybody can hear me okay. But pleasure to be with you this afternoon, I should say. Lots of activity in Sacramento. The legislature did just go on its summer recess. They're on recess between July 14th and August 14th. They'll come back on August 14th and work until September 14th. That's the end of session. And then Governor Newsom will have until October 14th to sign or veto legislation. But there was a flurry of activity, as is common this time of year. And we'll start with the state budget. So back in January, Governor Newsom had issued his proposed fiscal year 23-24 state budget. He identified that there would be an estimated $22.5 billion deficit. This is a marked difference from what we had experienced the previous 2 fiscal years, where For fiscal year 22-23, we had a $97.5 billion surplus and a $76 billion surplus for fiscal year 21-22. That number, the deficit had risen and they may revise to $31.5 billion. But the good news is that the rainy day fund had more than sufficient funding, over $37 billion, to be able to cover that deficit. And transportation is not really adversely impacted by the general fund, and that's because we're predominantly reliant upon the gas tax and special fees like the vehicle registration fee. So we're fairly insulated from the ebb and flow, the volatility of the general fund, which is heavily dependent upon personal income tax, capital gains, corporate tax, etc. So we'll see if they have to come back at some point and do a mid-year adjustment. And that's because the state is still waiting on over $42 billion worth of tax collection, just given the storms. The feds and FTB had given a extension until October to collect. And so we'll see with the volatility of the stock market, although it's been doing better as of late. So that can maybe have an effect to the positive. But nevertheless, there are a couple items of interest with respect to transportation funding. One of them is in last year's budget, because again, they had such a huge surplus of funding. They were trying to figure, what to do, what investments they could make. And so Senate Bill 198 from last year had proposed to use $4 billion worth of general fund money. And again, transportation doesn't get general fund anymore. It really hasn't since 2009. And have that go towards public transportation in order to help jurisdictions around the state, operators around the state, with addressing their fiscal cliff issues. And so the governor had a little bit of reluctance, but struck a deal with the legislature. And I could start my video now. Can folks see me now? Okay, now you guys can see me. And so the good news is that the legislature is now making good on that promise to deliver $4 billion worth of funding that goes on a population basis to the MPOs. And then there's another $1.1 billion, so a total of $5.1 billion that could be used for transit operations or capital uses. And I just did a quick calculation on how much MCTC would receive, and we're anticipated to receive about $20.4 million worth of funding. So it's about $16 million from the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, and this is the first time that this is being made as a formulaic distribution. And so the accountability on this will be that you just have to catalog how you're using those expenditures. And so it's much like what occurred under Proposition 1B about a decade and a half ago. And so they're not going to necessarily make a value judgment of how we spend the funds. They're just going to take your word for it. If you have to rehab a maintenance facility or purchase more rolling stock, or spend more on operations in order to maintain or expand existing routes, that's 100% up to your discretion as far as what you do with those resources and how much gets distributed towards operators. And the same goes for this zero emission infrastructure program funding, which again is about $4.4 million. So hopefully that helps us with checking the box there and leveraging some of our Measure T funds, for the better, and helping out with our renewal efforts as well to try to compel mode shift and help out with additional access for disadvantaged communities and the like. Another major component, and Director Taylor had referred to this, is in Senate Bill 125. That's the transportation budget trailer bill. Senator Alvarado Gil, very much appreciate her initiative in putting in an item through the budget process in order to maintain the cap of what oversight costs Caltrans could charge for projects on the state highway system. This is a charge that we pay, being a self-help county. And so the legislature agreed to a permanent 10% cap. Without the cap, we would have paid as much as a 27% fee. And for projects such as on State Route 233 through Chowchilla, that would have been just one example, an $800,000 additional cost that we're saving as a result of the legislation. And so very much appreciate the senator working with her colleagues and others. Self-help counties also did a bulk of the work there. And they worked with the Caltrans professional engineers in California government. So that was a nice to have as well. Director Taylor mentioned there's a new CTC executive director. She's a familiar face. Very excited that the commission decided to retain Tanisha Taylor. We have an excellent working relationship with her, and she's intimately familiar with issues in the San Joaquin Valley. So that'll be a plus for us as we continue to compete for many of the competitive programs that the Transportation Commission administers. There's also a new speaker of the assembly, which is fairly unprecedented to have a change of power during the summer mid-session. But Assemblymember Robert Rivas from San Benito is succeeding Anthony Rendon as Speaker of the Assembly. And this is also an exciting turn of events for us because there's a lot of synergy between the Central Coast and San Joaquin Valley counties with a similar population, density issues. We have the 99, they have US 101. That's sort of their main arterial for facilitating goods movement, disaster response, tourism, etc. And so we look forward to working with him in his new capacity. And so we'll look for opportunities to meet with him and his staff. And I've had the pleasure of working with him previously, just given folks that I work with along the Central Coast. I think MCTC will be pleased to establish a relationship with him. On the infrastructure package, that was another major item that the governor initiated, and it was long overdue in trying to address CEQA, which is, it adds to the cost of a project, the time delays, and then, just the uncertainty of whether you're going to be able to deliver a project. And so the legislature did pass a package. There's really 3 bills of consequence that I think MCTC would be interested in. One is Senate Bill 146. This allows for Caltrans to be able to maintain its NEPA delegation, which is really important so that it streamlines the CEQA NEPA process, makes it just more cost effective and expeditious, especially when you have federal funds that are on a project, which is most things on the state highway system. And so it also allows for progressive design build, which is a newer procurement method where you bring in the contractor before you go out to bid to help you with the design, before you actually solicit the services for it to be constructed so that they can determine whether or not the design is feasible. The old way of doing it was folks would come up with the design and then go and shop and see who could build it. This is trying to eliminate some of that uncertainty. And so the department will have some slots in order to embark upon that endeavor. There's Senate Bill 147. This updates the endangered species list, which is pretty critical because there are some outdated species that, they're no longer found within a project area. And so just, with respect to any mitigation efforts that you have to conduct, what the legislature is asking is that, some species be removed if they're, not around anymore, or if there's something else that we have to account for, then that's fine. But hopefully this will also speed up the process in getting through CEQA. And then the last bill, which is the overarching one, it's Senate Bill 149. This bill puts a cap on the administrative and judicial process for CEQA to 270 days. And the purpose of this is to avoid sort of the document dumping to further delay, projects that will kind of languish. And again, it'll just add to cost. And then we wind up missing out on cycles of funding because we can't get our environmental clearance to get the shovel ready. And so that was really the impetus for why the governor wanted to embark on this endeavor. And so, really happy that the legislature took a step forward and got this package approved. And And lastly, just a couple bills of interest here as we're coming down the home stretch. We played a lot of defense this year. There's one or two bills that still have our interest. We're concerned. Assembly Bill 7. We spent a lot of time talking in the past about our ability to comply with the governor's climate action plan for transportation infrastructure. But we're essentially, as a Suffolk County, we're helping to be a part of the solution to accommodate goods movement, not just for the state, but for the nation. We're accommodating tourism. And so it's not always feasible to be able to invest in multimodal systems, although we've been very vocal about our support for whether that's high-speed rail or ACE, the San Joaquins, et cetera. We've done that even in our participation with the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Council. But what this bill does, for the most part, is it tries to codify the CAPTI executive order by Governor Newsom and then executive orders by President Biden under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And for us, there's one clause in there that's problematic, and it talks about reducing vehicle miles traveled in urbanized areas. Urbanized areas is not defined. And what we don't want to have happen is, as we continue to improve safety along the state Route 99 corridor, we don't want to inhibit our ability to continue to apply for state funding or use our Measure T dollars for that purpose. And so we're asking the author if she can make an accommodation to amend that so that it really pertains to perhaps it's Los Angeles or someone else where they're not even thinking about highways anyway, so that, again, we're not disqualified from going after some funds. I guess, and the last bill that I'll mention is Assembly Bill 985. Director Taylor mentioned this one. It's authored by Assemblymember Rambula from Fresno. This one is trying to get the Air Pollution Control District to revise their credit bank system, if you will, and disqualify the use of certain credits. That bill is currently in the Senate Appropriations Committee. It's been heavily watered down now to be a study, and that's because the U.S. Navy jumped in and said, hey, wait a second, we rely upon these credits. You can't invalidate certain credits. And so we're hoping that the bill gets held on suspense just because we do still have a state deficit, and the state really doesn't have resources to fund study bills. And so we'll keep you posted on that effort. So, Mr. Chair, I'll stop right there, and I'm happy to take any questions or entertain any comments that you or commissioners may have. Thank you.
Questions from the commissioners? Any question from the public wanted to clarify? No. Thank you, kids. I appreciate the update. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
There was no action. That was just informative item. So moving on to item number 6B, public participation plan update and Madera County Transportation Commission logo redesign.
Yes, item 6B covers two activities we've been doing under the same project. This is actually part of the project we did with the RTP and the public outreach effort. Part of that contract was to do outreach for our RTP, talk to community members, learn what their thoughts are on our long-range transportation planning, as well as the current state of things today. As part of that, there was also an element where we would look at our public participation plan and take what we learned from that effort. And really, we took what we learned from some of the Measure T activities we did, some of the transit planning activities we did, and find out some good ways that we can incorporate that feedback into an update of our public participation plan, the PPP, as we call it in the office. So we have done that after considering what we learned. We've added some good new elements on ways we can engage people in person, electronically, utilizing any new technology that might come our way. We've looked at who it is we target and who we want to have meaningful engagements with, as well as we've added a new section about equity and inclusion, things that really help us go step in step with what the state and federal government want us to do with our planning activities for transportation. This is a document that has a 45-day public review, and it was released on the 14th. And that review period concludes on August 28th. So We're excited about that. The other part of this was looking at how people see us. And that is our logo, our branding. We do have a little bit of an older logo, as we've heard from some of our partners or people we work with around the region, where we collect all our logos and stick them all on one page. Ours is a little long, maybe time for a new one. So we did look at that. I think Troy even has a sample. You might have already seen it on our staff reporter up here, but we have a big version of that as well. And it was actually a very interesting process to select a logo. The team we worked with was DKS Associates, and actually the project manager is here, Kendall Flinch. Do you want to explain how the whole competition logo works? Because it's pretty interesting, but it was a cool process.
Thank you. And we're very excited to present this today. One of the challenges with developing logos is that they can be incredibly expensive when you hire advertising agencies. And one of the things we found over the years is partnering with competitions allows us, in this case, to get over 400 entries for less than $900, which is a really good use of taxpayer money. So it's not a $20,000 investment. So staff was able to review the top 25 submittals, and then we narrowed that down. And we've set this up so that it can be put together in a variety of different ways, with just the icon on the left or just the MCTC, and combined in different ways. This particular logo has also resulted in a branding package. So we're going to be looking at everything from letterhead, agendas, the whole 9 yards. And as was mentioned, this is really a more forward-thinking, more transformative of logo that suggests movement and all that kind of good stuff. It is also incorporated into the public participation plan. And just for your edification, we've also updated all of the media lists. We've updated all of the public engagement for individual groups that we found to be really interested in the process during the RTP update, and updated all of the opportunities that are out there for inclusion, equity, and also language translation, which is very important in this particular county. And we learned that from the RTP. So we hope you like it. And again, it was a competitive bid process, but I think a really good use of the funds that were available to us at that time. So if you have any questions, obviously, about the public participation plan or about the logo itself, I'd be happy to answer this for you.
Any question? None? Thank you.
So yeah, it was definitely interesting. We got the email and there was 200 logos that got made in like a 5-day period from all these designers that are competing for our business and having a competition with themselves. And then we give them feedback, they refine it, we say, we don't like this color, and they do it again. So whoever thought of the logo competition website, that's like a really cool idea. So yeah, we got a lot of rebranding, I guess, with, as you mentioned, our letterhead, our promotional materials when we're out in communities. Right now we have like a table that's got a tablecloth with our logos. We got all kinds of little things like that we'll be adjusting and working on. As you can see, here's some examples that we just played with before the meeting to set something up of a ID card or a business card, or the different things we can put that on as far as all the materials that we do use in the office. So this doesn't have an action with this item. It was just information about the activities we've been doing with this public participation plan and the rebranding part of the project.
Thank you.
But if there's any questions,
I think we have somebody from the online. No more. Thank you. No, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we're moving on to item number M, the next item, which is MCTC sitting as the Madera County Transportation Commission, reaffirming all action taken while sitting as the Transportation Policy Committee. So item number 8 is a consent item. So move. I have the first to have a second.
Second.
I have first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 8, administrative consent item. All items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by MCTC staff. Anybody like to discuss any of these consent item or? Say none, move to approve. I gather first I have a second. Second. I have a first and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, item number 9, administrative action discussion. Item 9A. Executive Director Employment Agreement 2019-03 Resolution 2308.
So this item is for the Executive Director Employment Agreement. And commencing July 1st, 2023, employees shall be entitled to a one-time 1% COLA in addition to the regular annual COLA of 1% per year for a total COLA of 2%. And this is before you for approval.
I'll move to approve it. Let's, let me open this for public. If anybody from the public wanted to discuss or say no, nobody's online. Any commissioners have any questions? None. So then I have a first on the floor. Do you have a second? A second. I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you so much. Item good. And moving to item number 9B, which is October MCTC Policy Board Meeting, date change to October 25th, 2023.
This is just a friendly reminder. When we did release the dates for this entire fiscal year, we included the date change in that list, but normally we meet that on the third Wednesday of the month. And this one we're pushing back to October 25th because the California Transportation Commission will be in Madera on the week that we would normally have held our meeting. And so we hope that you will all be around and in attendance when the California Transportation Commission is here in Madera County, and we will be taking them on a tour. We will be having several different meetings. They'll be hosting their meeting here at the superintendent's office. And it'll be an exciting time. The California Transportation Commission has not been to Madera or hosted a meeting in Madera. And so this would be a first for us all. So it would be great to see you all there for that. So that's the reason for the pushback of the meeting to October 25th.
I thought it was because of my birthday. That's okay, we can.
It really is, but they didn't want to show favoritism.
Everybody knows.
October 18th, thank you.
Anybody else have any to say? No. That was just a discussion item. No, action need to be taken. So thank you. And we're moving on to next item, which is MCTC sitting as the Madera County 2006 Transportation Authority. Item number 10, administrative consent item again. All items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by MCTC staff and will be approved by one motion. Would anybody like to discuss or pull any item for the further discussion from the consent item? None. With that, I'll bring it back and look for motion.
We so moved to approve.
I have first, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have first and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nays? Thank you. Ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to item number 11, authority action discussion. Item 11A, award contract measure T, sales tax extension, public outreach and education.
Sure, Chairman. Oh, go ahead. No, you, go ahead.
At the April meeting, we had a discussion about our next steps moving forward for Measure T renewal. And it was, you provided authorization for us to circulate a request for proposal to retain a consulting firm to assist us in that process in public engagement and public education for Measure T. And we did that. We circulated a request for proposal. We received 7 proposals back, which was great response rate, as a matter of fact. And we received those in June, late June. We had an evaluation committee review and score the proposals. And then we interviewed the top 2. And today we are requesting authorization to retain DKS to assist us in our sales tax extension, public outreach and education for Measure T. So this would be going out and doing public workshops, engaging the public, any kind of social media that we may need to include, polling, and drafting the investment plan that we would, based on the responses that we get from the public and the local jurisdictions and the staffs on developing the investment plan. So the development of that plan, and then also moving forward through your various boards and going through the process and getting support, and ultimately the Board of Supervisors placing it on the 2024 ballot. And then it would switch over to a campaign effort. We'll continue the public education process, but the goal here really is to engage the public and reach out to the public and make sure we're soliciting all the feedback and information that is needed in the development of a new investment and to go before the voters.
Thank you. Do we have any?
Yeah, I just, I wanted to address the thought that Measure T is probably one of the most important projects that we're going to be doing in the near future as far as, and has been for some time, been important to this county as a funding mechanism. And without it, we're really hamstrung in many ways as a self-funded county. So it's very highly critical. And because of that, I took an extra hard look at this. And so, you know, normally I'm kind of easy where staff, when we give suggestions and put things out before us, and I'm always hesitant to rock the boat when we have a suggestion from staff, because I feel like they're very well informed and make a big effort. In this case, I kind of took a deep dive into the organizations that are involved in this. And it seemed to me, in just looking at the surface, just the websites themselves, that, and I know we've used DKS for other things, but DKS, it seems that this kind of function is not their focus. They're more of a consultant on transportation in general, like studies, and it seems that their bailiwick is kind of outlined in their front page there. So I kind of took a deep dive into that and looked at that. And then as I looked at other aspects of the different people that gave us proposals, one that stuck out to me was LGSC with Alex Trevelyan. And the reason that it grabbed me, number one, I know of him, know of his organization, I know of his work. And he's had political success in Madera County before, proven success in campaigns. This is what they do. And I think the thing that grabbed me the most is they're local. And they understand the politics of the region very, very well. In fact, he also publishes a paper, an online paper, every day. You get it like at 6 a.m. I think it comes out. But I read that, and I really get the feeling that he understands Madera County. He understands his organization, understands the politics of our region. And I think that's key to this particular issue, because I believe we failed to recognize that the last time. And if we look at that, if we took a deep dive into our failure on that, and I'm not accusing anyone or putting a damper on it. We know we lost. But if you take a deep dive into that, I think it's largely a failure to understand the region politics, that the mountains are completely different from the valley, and the thinking there, and the opponents we had. You wouldn't have thought we would have those opponents. Also, another thing that came up during our discussions was the fact that, and this was a result of a failure to look at the region and what was going on. We had a similar connotation in a measure in the county next door, and a lot of people were confusing the commercials with our measure. And I got calls on that too, and we talked about that. So I just feel like that would be something I would really like us to take a hard look at.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. And it's no surprise, I've been very vocal about Measure T. Me just coming off of election 2022, I knocked on thousands of doors, and I talked to many, many people about all things, but many times Measure T. And I'd like to piggyback on that. I think we all know that the success of Measure T is critical for our county. And you know, for me looking at the weaknesses of last year, what I noticed was the failure to identify and understand local politics. You know, I do know of LGSC and their work and their successes as well. And they are well known in the local area, and they do have successes. And it's one of those things where we have to get this right. We have to get this right. And I trust their organization. And I feel like if we go with someone who's not local, we're going to travel down a very similar path. And that's something that I wanted to vocalize here. And I don't know if there's any other comment about that, but I would like to make a motion to amend the staff.
I do have a comment. Okay. My question was more so on when it comes to selecting one of these consultants. We have the RFP process that's looking for the lowest and most responsive bidder. The Cross Currents LLC, now it kind of surprises me to see that they deviate quite a bit from your other consultants there. Is there a reason why that wasn't, I mean, as far as the scoring model goes and all that, why that wasn't considered?
Cross Currents, their experience and practices normally around the lobbying type, and usually lobbyists retain you for a fee. And so I'm not sure if he quite understood the RFP process or why he chose to respond that way. He's one person, so that's probably why he chose to go with, retain me and then pay me a certain amount of funds per month for the next number of months. And so I think that's why he responded in that way.
Okay, and that's when I see that big of a difference.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's got to be something.
Right.
And I thank you for at least.
He viewed himself mainly as an extension of staff.
Yeah.
And so he said, I work 24/7. So, you can reach me 24/7, that type of a thing. They did score, Cross Currents did score, 7th out of the 7. And that was partially some of the reason, the response was not responding to the certain criteria that we were looking for in our request for proposals. Now for the LGS, there were positive remarks about LGS, and mainly because they are local. But there was some holes in the proposal that were received from LGS. Not that you cannot fill those. We're here to work with whatever the wishes of the board are. It looked like that their strength would be when we switch over to campaign. That is definitely a firm that you'd want to use for a campaign process. So there were some. If the wishes of the board is to move forward with LGS, then we'd have to go back and have a sit down and go through the whole RFP and make sure that there's an understanding of exactly what our needs are. Some of the responses were the scorers scored based on reviewing the applications. They felt it was heavily weighted in the Eastern Madera County area. Now we know why. We do understand the reasons why, because that's where we did have our opposition. And there was also some late surveying and workshops we need to run forward, hitting it hard tomorrow. And so we need to be working very hard, engaging the public tomorrow. And so that was, scoring committee placed them at 6 out of 7.
So my other question that I was going to have is if you can please expand on DKS, because I know they deal with a lot of the agencies around here locally, but why did we think that this was a better consultant for this particular deal? I mean, we understand that the LGS is set more for campaign and we may be able to retain them there, but why DKS today?
DKS is a professional transportation firm, as you mentioned. They're with us here today. You just heard from Kendall Flint. Would be the project manager. they have the staff to put the boots on the ground right away. And they responded with a tremendous amount of workshops and public outreach opportunities. And it looked like they understood the issues from our last effort. And it's not that, you know, we, like I said, we'll go with whatever the wishes of the board is, except for that they do have the staff. The polling was not identified in the LGS, so we didn't know who the pollsters were. The polling's identified in the DKS, and so the pollsters we interviewed as well to make sure that they were going to be looking at the things that we were wanting to look at. The top two that we did interview are DKS and Clifford Moss. And the scoring committee, as you see here, scored DKS as the top score out of the 7, based on comprehension of the project, thoroughness of the proposal, meeting the RFP objectives, project delivery time, qualifications and experience, references, DBE participation, and reasonableness of the cost. All are reasonable. All had strengths. Every proposal. It was a tough one. It was really, really tough. And so all had strengths and weaknesses, all had holes in their proposals. And so we felt that they are a professional transportation firm, that they understood our issues. They've had success in past transportation measures. And so we were making sure that the agencies that we were interviewing had some transportation experience. And so that's where we came up with our decision.
Any other question? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 questions. First of all, if you could kind of describe the process in terms of choosing, you know, who is made up of, I mean, you don't have to name people, but you know, people involved in the choices and their decisions. And then what is the differences between maybe you get hit that pretty hard, the educational part and the campaign part? You know, what are because I think there's some severe differences between the two.
So to answer your first question, we had a committee made up of 3, and they were representative from each of your jurisdictions, high level, reviewed the proposals, ranked them, and we met, discussed the proposals, and so they are ranked accordingly here on your staff report. The interview process was my staff, including myself, and an elected official. And so we went through the whole RFP. They took 15 minutes, presented their proposal to us. We went back and forth on questions and understanding the proposal. How do you know, what are your strategies moving forward, your next steps moving forward, and what can you do for us? And we expressed our concerns in terms of, we have limited staff. Whoever we retain, it is definitely an extension of staff, and you're married to us for and a year and a half, and our staffs are going to have to juggle a lot and wear many hats, because Measure T is not our Measure T. We administer Measure T funds. That's not our sole responsibility. We run a metropolitan planning organization and a regional transportation planning agency. We have to get that work done. That's important work. And this is very, very important. So this is hugely important. So whoever we retain, it's hugely important. And our first kickoff meeting would be to have that discussion. As it relates to public education and campaign, we cannot advocate. We can only educate. We saw through the process that we went through last year is that the criticism that we received was you didn't engage the public correctly. You did it after the fact, even though we have disagreements. You know, we believe that we engaged the public accordingly, but we identified a steering committee and we relied on the steering committee to engage the public on our behalf as well because of our limited staff. This time we would need to go out, engage the public, do as much as we can in terms of workshops, letting the public know what Measure T has done for them through any kind of public education campaign pieces, whether it be social media or print media or verbally going out and speaking to different groups and talking to all different groups that, the Rotaries and whatever you have, whatever has it. That's public education's sole responsibility, is to take that information and put it into a plan and identify how we are going to spend the funds, the Measure T proceeds. And so the investment plan development is the main thing in the public education part of it, where you go out and you talk to the public and you say, this is what the public wants, this is what we have, this is what we identified, this is how we address their needs. The campaign takes it, and you've got to find a campaign committee that's going to take it and believes in it. And we cannot do that. We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to spend any kind of government funding on campaigning. So the campaign committee would take it, develop videos, do whatever it needs to do, media, solicit donations, develop signs, develop whatever, take it and see if we can get this passed by the voters in 2024. For lack of a better word of saying it. So public education is educating, campaigns advocating.
Any other comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I felt that we did tremendous public outreach last time. I don't think that was the problem. I think we came from behind a negative narrative. I think that I think it was apparent that our story was hijacked from the outset, and the particular group set that hijacked that story didn't really give us the opportunity to educate them on that. And they had an answer. And there were just a few controlling the narrative, just a few. But they had an answer that no matter what we said or did, we were going to lose, no matter what, because it was already the narrative. And I don't know how you undo that other than having a real in with that particular group set. And that was my particular interest in Alex Trevelyan, because I believe he has that in. Knowing what I know about his organization and what he does and who he reaches, I believe he already has that in. And that's one of the things that really interested me in him from the beginning.
And I would like to add, I don't think Measure T failed last time due to a lack of technical knowledge or technical education. I think there were a couple fatal flaws, and I attribute it to not having the knowledge of the complexities of Madera County. And it's
Right.
it's very, very important to me, and I have trust in that organization.
And that brings it to the local politics, understanding of the local politics.
Well, but drafting of it as well. I mean, the drafting of it is. I mean, there were some fatal flaws built into it.
Right. Yeah, as an example.
And by not understanding the local politics, we could have avoided some of that.
Right. As an example, the failure to sunset. That was the fatal flaw, no doubt about it. And if you understand local politics in our region, your mind would immediately go to the mountains, super conservative, heavily conservative. And you'd say that will not fly in the mountains.
Well, there was the Republican Party put out an official no on T.
Yeah.
And there was no countering. There was no countering of that. Zero.
Yeah.
And that lack of engagement just showed that they didn't understand the local politics, and it's vitally important. And that's why I'm speaking the way I am about LGS.
Well, just for clarification, we cannot say yes on T. So
Right, I
just so
get
you know,
that,
we
yes.
could not go out and tell people how to vote.
No.
We couldn't go out
No.
on social media and tell
But
people.
the development of it and soliciting the feedback to create it, I think is vitally important.
The pros and cons of explaining it to the general public Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna speak in regards to the areas that Measure T covers, right? You have the city of Madera, city of Chowchilla, and you have the county of Madera. County of Madera in general is incorporates a vast majority of land, unincorporated areas. But when we saw the statistics of where the majority of people were voting on, heavily conservative, yes, but it was a specific area that really decided that they weren't going to jump on this. Early on, the onset of this whole process, staff, people, we engaged a lot of different agencies. And you know what's funny is that a lot of the times I heard the roll call and they were absent. So the fact that they were not present and trying to put their voice out there, essentially the core that was there came up with the solution of maybe saying, can we go with the forever, right? And it wasn't really so much the forever, but it was more, look, we've had this for over 30 years. We're not adding any new taxes. We all know that regionally we need to work with each other. We know that the city definitely needs that Measure T, and it's very critical for us. Now, the fact that it may have happened on a midterm, who knows? I mean, you know that with politics and when it comes to voting, certain people don't come out to vote with midterms as they do for elections. This is going to be a very contested election coming up in 2024. Sure. So I think you're going to see a big amount of people coming out and really either supporting it or really opposing it. And it seemed like in this case, there was certain folks that were certainly, but even after the whole thing was done, after the dust had settled, we came back here to have a conversation and explain, hey, what did we do wrong? What can we do to better the situation? And when given the opportunity, it wasn't that. It was more like you have to rearrange the whole thing, rearrange the authority, rearrange this, because that's the only way we're going to agree with you. So then to me, it seems like they're playing politics. And, you know, I understand politics. I mean, at least from what I see here, but it seems to be like, you know, it's not going to be for the benefit of the people. They understand that they can put a stronghold on an agency like Madera, like the city of Madera, like the city of Chowchilla. That isn't fair. So how we advocate, I think, is very important, but very early in the process when we started, I think we tried to capture that. The invitation was there. Should we engage more people? Yes. I think more people should have a voice when it comes to this. But to say that there wasn't an effort out there is not true, because I went through this whole process, and some of us that sat through that steering committee know that there was a lot of input, feedback. Obviously, there was a group out there that wasn't too happy because we weren't serving the certain sectors of whether it be Fermi, Lavina, but again, that's county. Maybe the education piece is, how do these dollars affect these areas out in the county? And that's what I felt people had that misconstrued, that the wrong information as far as how these dollars are allocated for each jurisdiction. Yep. We know what it is at the Madera. We have our capital improvement projects. We have our transportation projects. We need that money. Right. And we, if 2024 doesn't fly, I think I've said this before and I'll say it in public, then I want to encourage the city to move on their own measure. And maybe the county and the city of Chowchilla can move on theirs. But I think it's important as a regional agency that we work together, because these projects are super important. Now, if DKS has grounds on the has troops on the ground, and they can do a better job, and you rank them based on that, then I'm good with that. But feeling the local politics is really just saying, hey, we got to do what the people up there in the foothills do. I don't know if that's the case, but to me, it seemed like that was it, because they did hold us on that specific thing with the forever clause. That was the one main thing that I took from the whole thing. But after we said, okay, let's remove that. Can we work with you? No, we want you to rearrange the whole authority. We want you to, matter of fact, I think they wanted blood. And obviously I don't know that you can squeeze any blood out of this turnip. I don't know.
Yeah, they held the narrative. Is
And I understand what you're saying. I agree with a lot of it. But also, you know, the Republican Central Committee, they voted to oppose Measure T. That's all of Madera County. That's city residents. That's Eastern Madera County. That's Chowchilla. That's everywhere. And you know, them as a group putting out constant narrative of no on T, and blasting it everywhere. It plays a part. And I think that comes back to having the influence of the local side.
Yeah, and I can't speak on what the gauge of the politics was up there, but I know that with the statistics that we saw here with the votings, the city of Madera, at least the residents, that stat was a lot higher, maybe 60%, if not more. And to me, it seems like if the city came out to vote, and that was probably shame on us, shame on me for not really getting this out there enough. I think the city in itself has a lot of folks that can certainly turn this around because they know the need for it, right? And I think that if we can work together, the same thing was being piggybacked from Fresno's measure. And that also failed because there was also that other organization doing the same thing to them as well. And that was, hey, vote no on this measure, vote no on this measure. We're not adding any taxes. We're continuing to utilize that same tax revenue to supplement our roads. It's a small amount of money to leverage from millions and millions of dollars that we get, not only from Caltrans, from federal dollars. I've said this over and over, and without it, I think, you'd put us out, of work. You put our residents at stake.
Commissioner, do you have anything to say?
I think Councilmember,
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Ahmad. I thank everybody for their comments up here on this board, and I'm listening to a lot of reasons for BK and different consultants. But I do look at it as Measure T is very important. And I look at what we said that this consultant firm is going to be in charge of social media, reaching out to the public, polling, community meetings, and then switching to a campaign issue. If that's the case, then who better to do it than somebody local? Because the residents do trust local companies, local agencies. A good example is, and this has nothing to do with transportation, but we have a lot of homeless in the river, and we've had a lot of agencies try to go in there and pull them out and get them help. They wouldn't listen. But we got outreach workers that had been in the river before that talked to them, that finally pulled them out because they had that trust. They had that one-on-one. And I think that is going to make a difference with us passing Measure T in every sector of this community. And in this county is to have someone that kind of knows the boots on the ground and has some connections. And that's, I think, what we really need. And we've done RFPs in the cities for years, and they're never perfect. And there might be a company that RFP that we weren't real comfortable with, but they can tweak it to what our needs are. And they can hear what our staff needs and needs to accommodate or change or tweak. And then it's the perfect plan for us to move Measure T forward. And it is so important. And I do thank staff for their time and going through the interviewing and the agencies that got together to go through the RFPs. That's not always easy, especially when you have 7. That's a lot of time. We just did it recently and I appreciate that. But to make this successful and to make sure this is a green light for us and we do pass this as a county, I really feel to win back this community, it's gonna have to be someone local. So that we have their ear, at least for them to open up their ears. Because, as Jordan said, we had some people shut their ears and their minds were made up and they weren't gonna listen to anything we had to say. And so those are my comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. On this, for clarification, on the selection process, on the scoring process, local have any special scoring being a local?
Not in terms of the scoring criteria that we have, but definitely in the discussions and moving it forward. There's a lot of positive comments about being local.
Right. That's just one factor, but when we do an RFP, we have to look at all these other things too.
Right,
So
right.
going back to, I think all in all, we may wanted to look at the different questions, will of the commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple of comments. Number one, we're looking at 2 different skill sets here in terms of the outreach and going out and questioning and so on and so forth, and versus a campaign. I do think that I guess what LGS is very skilled at hitting the road and helping to get a nice campaign going and really pushing the message. But that's the second half. The first half, we have to determine, if we even move forward. Because one thing we don't want to do is to, say, hey, we can, last time we had in pre-polling like 77%, and we ended up with 52%. We don't need the practice. And, you know, I think about the three very high level people from the city of Madera, the city of Chowchilla, and the county of Madera as being people who, you know, are skilled, many years of experience in moving forward. And they all, I believe, came up with kind of very similar type of thing. And it kind of bothers me a little bit that this outfit came number 6 out of 7. You know, I mean, as far as the total numbers, I think it was 62 to 52, but that's kind of, you know, concerning. And the other thing is that as far as talking to this particular outfit, you know, we spent a lot of time, the RFPs and in interviews and things of that sort. And now, you know, we come up with a vote and we're coming up with somebody who is local, but do we necessarily want them, you know, they ended up 6 out of 7. And is it somebody that, you know, is somebody we want to use up front? And so since, you know, they did score, you know, very low. So I think that's a consideration. And frankly, I like to talk to this. I think that this firm needs some additional interview because the top 2 firms were interviewed and it was like an hour-and-a-half interview for both. LG ended up 6 out of 7, so they weren't interviewed. So you can't interview everybody. So I would feel more comfortable if we interviewed them and we're able to talk to them and ask some questions about, you know, going out there. Again, I have no issue, and I know they've been very successful in the campaign part, but we're talking about the data collection part. And I believe that, you know, the top 2 have much more experience. And I don't think that necessarily local knowledge it's helpful, but I believe that DKS has done stuff in the area to where, you know, it's not a total, you know, wipeout for them. It's not like they're from Maine or something or from Florida, you know, and Madera's some out, you know, it's like where, you know, so anyway, those are my comments.
Good. Just one more comment that I agree with Rob on the idea that we need to re-interview a little, do a little more due diligence on this. And to his point that that Alex and his group LGS have an expertise in campaign. I would weight this more to the campaign because my feelings about Measure T are that and any measure, the voters are typically it's a few, and I say a few. It is the minority that educates themselves on issues, and they inform the others. And they have their groups of informed people. I personally experienced this when it comes time for campaign. I get call after call after call after call after call, and messaging from my Facebook and emails from, and it amounts to about 300-400 people who inform other people. And so it's exponential. And they asked me, what should I do on this? Because a lot of them don't know where to find what they think is reliable information, what they think is acceptable information. And so I give them my opinion. And what we're dealing with here is similar, is very similar. And I think the weight is going to be on the campaign this time. I think it's going to be a matter of convincing a few people that this is the way it's got to be. And I think it's going to be a matter of sitting down with those few people, and we know who they are. So I think it's a lot easier to do it this time, ahead of time. And I hope that I'm right in the sense that I hope we can convince them. And I think when they see the whole picture, they'll realize, you know what? This is for the people. This is a tax of the people for the people, not for Sacramento. because that's how they see every tax. Big government taking my money to do something with it that doesn't affect me at all. And so I think if you look at it that way, and how we craft it is going to be everything. Naturally, the wording of it, we saw that the wording was the critical component. You were dead right on that. And I think it's just going to turn out different this time. I believe that.
That being said, Commissioner Rogers, I like what you're saying. So kind of going back, the first component of it is extracting data, surveying, polling. I think if that was given to DKS, but then we say we concentrate all of the concentration efforts on campaigning through your local government that understands people, that would want to reach out and make sure that this campaign is successful so that we don't go back to where we're at today, right? So I'm amenable to that. I can see that going, but I think in the initial stages, to Executive Director's point is if you're trying to have someone do something that's, I mean, what I think is critical, then with data, then let the data experts take care of that. And if you've already vetted them out, you scored them, and these folks came at the top, the other one came in at 6 out of 7 with that scope of work, then I don't see why that would be a change. But I am amenable to moving on to the campaign side and certainly using someone local. And kind of to your point, I'm certainly amenable to that.
I would like to have a comment to that and a little bit back to the bifurcation of the data collection and the campaign. They are very much intertwined. The development, I don't think last year that the fatal flaw was in data collection. That certainly wasn't, but listening to the people and understanding the potential pitfalls early on were those fatal flaws. So I don't think that it's something that you can completely bifurcate like that. And you know, going back to the scoring of 6 out of 7, for me, it looked like the top 6 were very close, and then there was one that was very low. So, and looking at the scoring rubric, I mean, I think if you look at that rubric, there's a lot of things in there that you could go one way or the other. So in reality, for me, looking at the top 6, they were all very close. It seems like any one of them, minus one who was at the very bottom, could actually be qualified to do this. So to say that, you know, one scored very high and one scored very low, I would say is an inaccurate depiction of what this was. Now, granted, when you go through the process, you guys go through your scoring methods, and so I just wanted to counteract that point a little bit. So there isn't one that's highly qualified and one that is highly unqualified, except for maybe 1 out of those 7. It seemed like 6 were generally qualified.
So we would go from here.
Well, I just like to see, you know, LGS, I like to see their resume. I like to see what they've done as far as data collection on these type of campaigns, what kind of measures that they've collected data from, because that's again, a very important part of the educational thing. I understand the campaign part, but what have they done as far as the educational part? And I definitely want to see their resume. I haven't seen it. And, you know, what is it? And for us to vote on it without that information, I think it's we're voting in the dark.
Was that stuff not on all the RFPs?
Well, I'd like to make a motion, then I'm gonna amend or that wouldn't be amending, but propose a new motion to interview LGS on their, have our staff interview them similar to what they did for the other organizations, and then bring this back at the next available meeting. Or even if we need a special meeting, I don't know what needs to happen on that, but whatever needs to happen, that's what I say we do.
So if I may add, we can't wait till the next meeting because that's not till September.
Okay.
And we can always hold a special meeting.
Right.
Or is there an opportunity to form an ad hoc committee to make that, go through the interview process, a couple of you, and then authorize moving forward with which firm that you prefer to work for? I think it's just a matter of filling in some of the gaps and holes and finding out the experience related to the information.
In making that motion, I'm simply trying to accommodate with colleagues. I feel comfortable moving forward with LGS myself because I know that they have the capability of doing everything we want in this program. They're a political consultant. My political consultants understand polling very well. Most of all of them do. They have to. If they don't get that, they're gonna have holes in whatever they're doing. So I feel comfortable personally, but for my colleagues, that's what I was suggesting. I don't know how the rest.
If you don't mind, I do think we do need to do an interview, only because, like I mentioned, we are a staff of 6, 7, whatever we are, 7. We need to rely on someone to actually
Right.
help draft the document. You know, we have another agency that we're running as well, and we, you know, with our input, obviously,
Right.
with us sitting side by side, but we need to make sure that those capabilities are there. So I would agree with definitely going through an interview.
Yeah, like Commissioner Rob mentioned that obviously we can't just go into the dark and not interviewing somebody, just making a decision on it. So can we have a special meeting on this to decide sooner than later and at least have an opportunity to discuss?
I'm favorable to it. Yeah.
I am too.
Absolutely.
And if I may ask, who would be the ad hoc and who are the experts in the data polling surveys that may want to sit in here to interview properly so that we have a really good conclusion as to who the top performer would be? Because the way I look at it is that I have no expertise in that, so I wouldn't want to be part of that. I certainly ran my own campaign, but I can't tell you the data that's extracted so that we can try to get something like this going. So I would like to know who's going to be taking part of that, and hopefully when they interview, you look at it more as a, like Supervisor Poitras says, that you look at the resume and look at what are their campaigns and what are their or the data they've used in order to have successful campaigns. I'm curious as to how that's going to happen. And I mean, the way I look at it is if you hire an accountant because you want them to figure out numbers, you hire an attorney because you want to interpret language. And I think staff think that's why you're here, so that you can tell us and rate that. You know, I'm not going to try to tell you that this person is the best because he's local, but rather because of the performance that they've had within the resume, right? So if there's an ad hoc committee, I guess I wouldn't know where to start.
Well, I'd be happy to sit on that committee and I'll just give my resume in that regard. Much of my training was in survey and statistics, as well as I've conducted a number of campaigns through over about 30 years worth of campaigning. And in that process, I sat with my consultants and we dissected the information that we, put through. And I learned a lot through experience on that, in addition to my formal education on that. So I would be happy to sit on that committee and with anybody else that would like to.
We have our Commissioner Rob you've been there, you went through the previous round. At
Be
least,
happy to.
so you need 2 or 3 people on the committee.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner.
I'd be happy to be on it. Like I said, for me, this all comes down to how do we get this passed? That's it. There's nothing more than that. I've been very passionate about this for a year, and I want the absolute best person there. So I can absolutely, approach this with a neutral set of eyes. So I'd be happy to be on it.
Right. So with that, we need a motion to appoint 3 committee members.
Also move. Appoint 3 committee members.
Unless somebody have any further
Well, I'm
questions.
just asking, is 3 still an ad
Yeah,
hoc?
That's what I was
Yeah,
gonna.
that goes to majority, right?
No, that's not a majority.
That's a tie.
1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah, that is a tie. You're right. Yeah.
So we need another person. Can I recommend Jose?
Either one
you
more
have
or
another
one
person
less.
That's a quorum.
No, that's a quorum.
Yes.
So just what he's saying, that there's half.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You know, what
But
I'd
you've
like
got
to
the
see
staff.
is have
Yeah.
one, you know, if I'm on there with David, that makes two supervisors. I'd like to see somebody from the city. I'd like to see Jose sit on that ad hoc committee.
Like I said earlier, I told you that I'm not an expert at that. I'd be more than happy to sit on it as a neutral person. But that would be up to you. If one of you guys wants to present something different, then this would be the opportunity.
So if I'm understanding correctly, we're gonna identify two, we're gonna have an interview, and we're gonna hold a special meeting.
Yes,
Okay,
because of the timing issue.
yeah, and just so you all know, this needs to be done yesterday. We're already getting a late start,
Yeah.
and so we will be hitting the ground as soon as we.
Yeah.
I apologize for the throwing opening the can of worms, but it's just so important that I began to do the deep dive and had these thoughts. I appreciate that.
Okay, so we have three names on the floor, so we need to select two. Or,
Well, I'm suggesting we need to, yeah, I'm just saying
From
we've
the
got
county, one from the
David
city.
jumped in, and so he's a,
It's not weighted heavily on the county, but rather it have some type of.
Yeah,
balance.
I don't have to be on there.
So I
was
think
just
even,
proffering.
either the two of you or you and you, like.
I have no problem with that. If you want to have the chair can certainly sit there as well.
yeah,
The reason I think I'd rather have the people already been there on the first round, they have a background knowledge. Because of the timing issue, we want to make sure rather than coming in as a fresh, starting all over from
That's a good
scratch,
idea.
it makes it a little difficult.
Yeah.
I don't mind, I was on the previous meetings and everything, and I think I
That's
very heavily
great
rely on
thought.
staff and
Great thought, because we don't have time to interview the other organizations again. He has knowledge that he brings to the table already. So I think that's a great thought. And Rob was on there as well.
I have no problem having the supervisors on it as long as we can get things going with the consensus of the board, right, the commission.
Like I say, I don't have to be on there. I don't feel like, I was just proffering myself. It didn't sound like anybody else really wanted to do it. So
It's just the experience.
I'm good with both supervisors too.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with it. I'm happy with it.
I think we all have a unified goal here, is getting this passed. That's our goal.
So I would recommend Commissioner Rob and also Commissioner David on the committee. And also staff being the third person as a support. Are we all in favor? Do we have a motion on the floor?
There's a
We
comment.
have a comment on the floor. Okay, so hold your thought now. Go ahead.
Dan, you're now allowed to speak. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My question for you is, if you establish an ad hoc committee, what are they going to do? Are they going to interview this outlier and make a decision? Or are they just going to interview and report back to the full committee or full commission?
They will interview, and that's why we are going to have a special meeting and the board will decide.
Okay, that was my concern, to make sure that the board is the one that decides and not abdicate to a committee. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question from the public? No? Okay. With that, I close the public and bring it back to,
I'll make a motion to, as stated, that we form the ad hoc committee.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Ayes have it. Motion approved. Awesome. Moving on to the next item, 11B. Just measure E, Citizen Oversight Committee member appointment.
Good afternoon. This item is to appoint 2 new members to the Measure T Citizens Oversight Committee. The committee's purpose is to inform the public and to ensure that the measure funding program revenues and expenditures are spent as promised to the public. The committee is comprised of 1 member from each supervisory district and 2 members at large. We have vacancies for District 5 and for 1 member at large. Staff conducted outreach and publicized the vacancies through advertisements and social media. The selection committee reviewed the applications received and is recommending that Faustina Washburn be appointed as the committee member for District 5 and April Molina be appointed as the committee member for a member at large. Staff supports the recommendations and asks for approval. I can ask any questions. You can answer any questions you may have.
Any question from the commissioners?
I think it's two great people, two great choices.
Like I say, I was on the selection committee and happy to have those two names on there. So.
Anybody from the public wishing to speak to this?
Great people.
Thank you. Bring it back to the commissioner, looking for motion.
Move to approve.
I have a first, I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it, thank you. Moving on to the other item, item number 12, miscellaneous 12A items from the staff.
Right.
No items. Okay, 12B, item from council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So I get a lot of extra time, right? Since right, yeah. I'm gonna try to make this less complex than the ad hoc committee. We're lucky, but we'll see how this goes. Real quick before I start, I do want to, I'm excited to introduce a new member of my team, Caleb Brock, who I brought with me, sitting in the audience. So Caleb will be running within my division, our Office of Transportation Planning. He has Valley roots. He's actually spent most of his career at headquarters and a little bit of time down in District 7, but I asked Supervisor Porches not to judge him on his headquarters experience. We ironed that out yesterday, I think, right? We're good? Okay.
Coming around.
Yeah, good. So, but in his time with headquarters, he actually was the liaison to MCTC and many of our other MPO partners. So I know a lot of the MCTC staff recognized him when he walked in the door. So there's an established relationship there. Really happy to have him on board. In the Caltrans language, we call this an office chief, which is a managerial position. They'll work directly under me, like I said, doing the transportation planning side of the house. So in the rare instances I'm not at a board meeting, you'll likely see his face sitting in this chair. So please welcome him with open arms. I can vouch for him. All right. All right. And moving on, so updates. So Clean California, we just finished the local grant program cycle 2. District 6 had 29 applications, which is actually the second most in the state, only to District 7 LA. So our local partners did step up with their applications. I think we had about $76.9 million in requests just from District 6 alone. The total requests statewide were $540 million. So there's $100 million available for this second cycle. Not as much as the first cycle, but we're hoping to have another successful round of Clean California grant applications. I think there were 4 from the Madera County region for about $10 million in requests. So probably August, September, we expect to see the announcements made on those grant applications. We also set out, just so you know, to the transit agencies in all of our counties. There's actually a second call related to Clean California where they're actually, it's only about $12 or $13 million statewide, but it's really focused on cleaning up transit facilities to enhance transit ridership. Those applications are due August 31st, and those emails have gone out to your team. So if there anything, and they have to be quickly delivered. So if there's anything transit related, where Clean California can support enhancing transit, please feel free to reach out to me or my team. The other ongoing grant applications we've talked about in the past are the Highways to Boulevard, which is a state application process where there's $149 million statewide. Those are due September 20th, and Caltrans will be selecting 3 communities to move forward in that program. There's a much larger federal program, Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods Grant Program. It's over $1 billion available for that program. Those applications are due September 28th. The other large grant program, the Multimodal Project Discretionary Grant Program. There's 3 components to that. There's Mega, Infra, and Rural. You may have heard of these. Last year, we did partner with San Joaquin JPA on an application for the high-speed rail component of the Madera Amtrak relocation station. We were not successful, but we are working with Dan Levitt and his team again to submit another application. It'll be about a $90 million ask we're looking at for that project. So looking forward to that. And I know it's not in Madera County, but I know Madera County has been very supportive of our 99 efforts. And just show the strides we made with 99 and getting headquarters support. They did ask us to apply for a grant for the 99 gap in Tulare and for full construction. So we'll be asking for about $140 million to complete that section in Tulare 99, which includes the interchange. So I think that shows with all the efforts and coming together as a valley, we're getting more support moving forward. And carrying off of that, the corridor plan that we talked about as well.
we're probably sending out invites here, hopefully this week for that finally having that kickoff meeting we've been talking about our local partners. So we are asking our partners to be flexible schedules because we're talking about 3 districts, 10, MPOs or 10 counties involved. And so those invites should be coming out soon. The consultant team consists of Jacobs Engineering, Cambridge Systematics, and then VRPA, who's local here to the Valley. As for projects, the South Madera 6 lane, that project continues to move forward. We're lining up the shop match that we're contributing to that project, which is about $55 million. And we're working with the city and county staff about identifying possible ZEV charging infrastructure to be part of that project to address greenhouse gas mitigation. The work on the downtown Madera rehab project, that's a complete streets project. We've worked very closely with the city team on. Really excited about that. Really appreciate the council signing off on the additional contribution to do additional complete streets enhancements. As I shared last month, to make that project whole, we are delaying the schedule a little bit on our own rehab to take in all those additional efforts and design. So we're looking probably at construction kicking off, it'll probably be end of next year as opposed to the spring. So about a 5-month delay. I don't think it affects it too much because theoretically we would have probably been ready to advertise that during winter suspension anyway. So we're probably gonna delay it about 4 or 5 months. But I said I think the payoff will be better with a more robust project and the complete streets elements we're adding to that project. We're looking to wrap up the environmental document for the 99233 interchange improvement. We circulated that back in May. So currently our environmental team are responding to comments. So we can finalize the environmental work. As you're probably aware, the work on the State Route 99 Cottonwood Creek Bridge replacement near Avenue 12 continues. Traffic is slightly shifted in the southbound direction. Currently, there will be, I think they're looking the first week of August or maybe August 8th, actually, for some night work where we will be forced to close the main line to put the girder in for the southbound lane direction. It will be night, like from 11 to 5 in the morning, and we're noticing the public. And it won't be a bad detour. I mean, pretty much you'll get off the ramp at 12, get back on the on-ramp, just to get around the girder construction they're doing. Let's see. Lastly, the Ranchos Rehab Project. For those of you who drive Madera 41, that's that rehab project between Avenue 15 and State Route 145. The work up until now started in May. They were primarily working on the biofencing and then building the detour adjacent to the route. My understanding traffic was shifted to that detour this week on the 16th. So you will see a little bit of detour while they work on that. So right now they're pretty much focusing on the roadway and drainage work is in progress as we speak. And with that, that completes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mike, I do have a question in regards to the State Route 145. As you know, the city did in fact contribute the additional funding that was needed for the streets improvements. I'm sure you're well aware also that we were unsuccessful in the Reconnecting Communities federal grant, unsuccessful on the Grace grant, and we're hoping that maybe the Highways to Boulevard. But is there any other grants or notice of funding opportunities that we can take advantage partnering up with Caltrans that you see coming down the pike? Anything that you've probably heard of?
Yeah, the other one that we're looking at closely is the Reconnect Communities, the federal program. And the only thing that I'd have to look at, and I have an investment planner that can maybe work with you on schedule to see if they align as far as the timing of awards. That's things we're cutting close on now is applying and having the awards in time for construction. But as part of the Reconnecting Communities, they have this neighborhood access and equity program that's pretty much aligns with the kind of the Reconnecting Communities we're looking at. That's a new component to the RCP this year, which was the same program you applied for last year. I could ask them to look at that and see how it aligns with, I don't know if the delay in construction that enables us to to squeeze in that window or not, but we can definitely look into that.
That was a question, and if not so much with the delaying of the project, but rather, this helps us in supplementing. We're not utilizing all of our city coffer money.
Absolutely. No, I know exactly.
It's already targeted for that. So if there's any other funding that we can get and supplement that, or maybe having to reimburse ourselves back in some way or capacity. But yeah, if you know of anything else, let us know how we can work with that too. And I'm sure our executive director will also let us know of any notice about.
Yeah, I totally appreciate the strategy that you did in taking that leap of faith with putting that money forward. But yeah, absolutely happy to support you there.
Yeah, Commissioner Gallegos was all for it, right?
Yes.
That's gonna be a great project. It really is.
It really is.
It's awesome.
I will ask, as I was driving outside of Madera going on to the, right after the Yosemite Madera exit towards the hospital, there's I don't know if you guys are doing the patching and what have you, but on the right lane heading south, you get some potholes out there, and I'm not sure if that's something you guys can look at.
South of Madera,
Right.
south of the hospital?
Yep.
What can I think there was?
And there may have been, this is a couple weeks back, I didn't get a chance, I think we didn't have a June meeting, so I didn't get a chance to report back then, so that may have been fixed, or somebody may have,
Okay. Yeah, let me check.
thank you.
Absolutely.
I have an ask for you, Mike, on the Ranchos Rehab Project. Since they did go down to one lane intermittently, I guess the ask would be for maybe a commuter alert for people to take alternate routes during that one lane time. I don't know if they are scheduled or not when they go down to one lane. But we are seeing upwards of 20-minute delays on those times, so.
Absolutely. No, I acknowledge, I know we have a lot of construction going right now, and that's one thing we've been talking about internally about what our public information office. I think we need to communicate better with our local partners and the motoring public, because we have emergency projects going on, we're still working on in various counties. And then sometimes it's poor communication with the contractor, but either way, we need to step up our game in that regard, so happy to share that.
If there was a schedule for when it goes to one lane, I'd be happy to do what I can to disseminate that information.
It would be helpful to put those signs, 145, say, down the front and in, or.
Take alternate route.
Yeah,
Don't go.
some of them don't all know the alternate routes.
No, you're right. We refer to those as CMS signs or changeable message signs. And then those need to be strategically placed where it gives the driver an opportunity to take said alternative route before they get into the construction zone, right?
I think we need to do those commuter alerts that pops up on your apps as well for the, I think that helps.
Okay.
A lot of people take the apps.
Can you give us an update on the Sunset Rehab project? I'm teasing, there's no sunset.
I'm sure sunset, my mind went to the measure again with no sunset, like there's no sunset, I thought.
I haven't asked Michael, the off ramp on Cleveland and off ramp on 145, a lot of weeds, about 3 feet high, and just clean them up, make the city look a little bit cleaner when they're coming into town.
I was gonna add the same thing to it.
That's Bill as well. Yeah, this has been a rough,
It's a rough year for that.
it's a rough week, with all the rains, great, but it's been a rough year for rehab and mowing and,
I noticed it yesterday coming in, and I noticed some coming into from Fresno. On the, up against the center divide, you see a lot of that, so.
I'll show our maintenance folks.
Yeah.
I know our maintenance person in Madera. really
You've been
well.
great that way too, thank you.
Thank you.
And one other there, I mean, there is a Serengo gang symbol on the northbound 99 Avenue 13 bridge, big, it's about this big, so.
Where?
Northbound 99 at the Avenue 13 overpass, center median. Don't want to advertise, it's not a good way to advertise.
Right.
Not good particular gang though, right? Just all gangs.
I mean,
All gangs equally, right? Yeah, no, we need to clean those up. Yeah.
What you're gonna have to start watching is on the back of the highway signs. They're starting to go up there
Tag
and
those.
tag all of that stuff. When I went to Arizona and back, coming back, I was like, I couldn't believe how many of them I saw.
Any other questions from the?
Well, since we're asking, let me know.
I thought these were getting, this would be a lighter session. This is where Wheeler retired, but apparently not. No potholes, nothing. You all actually, you did.
How do we get to use one of your robotic mowers?
No, I only heard about that. My mom told me that on the news. You saw that. When we saw those, we had the robotic mowers.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I think we have one or two of them. Like I said, I found out, like, how come they didn't share that at our staff meeting?
Remote control.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, no comment there. Thank you.
Like, I want that job.
Do this, Commissioner's report start from
Yeah, I'd just like to mention that Commissioner Rodriguez and I last Friday had an opportunity to attend the Highway 99 Coalition meeting with Tulare County as well as Merced County, and a comment that Michael made in regards to 140 million that Merced or Tulare County is looking at as far as the widening. That's just kind of an example, you know, of us working together as three counties. It's like that thing is a victory to me, and I know it is to all of us that work together. I mean, that's outstanding. They've worked so hard with us to get the funding for 99 here between 12 and 7, and we hope the same thing happens with our friends in Merced, because it's all one region, and that was a consequence of us working together. So it shows what happens when you get this coalition, and you know, you get the muscle behind it and the cooperation. So thank you for bringing that up.
And just to piggyback on that, I think, you know, these are the three counties that they have forgotten about, right? I mean, you see the biggest bottleneck effect. If you drive down Merced, you come into Madera, you're going from a 3-lane, 2-lane, back to a 3-lane, back to a 2-lane. And I think, you know, just working with these other counties in an effort, you know, as a coalition, then we support, I think, each other, because 99 is such an important corridor. You know, although we talk about electrification, we talk about high-speed rail, yeah, these things are certainly needed for transportation, but at the same time, you know, the transport of goods and the safety of people is just as important. And I think that's why, you know, these counties kind of saw the picture and say, hey, you know, working alone is very, very difficult. Working together, I think we can achieve more. And it's not different from what we do with Measure T. I think working together as the regional projects that we have together, this is how we can come about bigger money. We can certainly leverage. So I just thought I wanted to showcase that. They also, I think, were awarded over $40 million for their inland port right out at Castle, or at least for that Merced, which in a way it's kind of a win for the region, right? I mean, I hate to say it. I wish I was saying that Madera would score something like that, and maybe that's something that we can look forward to in the future of bigger projects of that size. But that'll certainly help alleviate some of the issues that we have with transporting of goods. So that being said, that's all I have as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Good. My first meeting and as an alternate at that, so I apologize for bucking the trend right out of the gate. But I'm happy to be here, and you know, from a 30,000 foot perspective, you guys are doing excellent work on this board. I think it's very evident the projects that have been able to come through. That's attributed to all you guys. So I'm very impressed with the work you guys are doing. So thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a few months, and welcome, Jordan. Just to put it out there that the city is offering Max Bus and Dial a Ride to cooling centers if we can't get our residents there.
Want to extend our best wishes to Leticia Gonzalez, who's about to have a baby, and a member of this commission, as well as the Board of Supervisors. We've got two others that are expecting at the county, closely related to our organization, and that's my Chief of Staff, Matt Skolnick, his wife, gonna have a baby any day now. And then also Micah Torres.
Flores.
Flores, I mean.
Yeah, she's
Did I call her Torres yesterday too?
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did it right. Okay.
She's having a baby in less than a week or two.
Yeah, it's just like happening all at once. And then my
Look at me.
my middle son, they had their baby a few weeks ago, and now I find out I'm gonna be a grandpa again, my youngest son. So number 8's on its way. Can't be better. I just wanted to congratulate the commission on one thing, and that is, and specifically Mike, who's been my partner in this thing for a long time, and Patricia as well. We what used to be Congressional District 16 is no longer, the same. But back when I first started on this commission and started in as a supervisor, 111 miles of District 16, which was the commission, the congressional district, was 2 lanes on each side of 99. And I think we've chipped away at that pretty doggone good from our perspective, considering we're, like you guys said, but we've formed partnerships, we've networked, we've built a coalition and we're making a difference. And I see it disappearing and I'm loving it. So thank you for all your hard work.
So I was actually gonna say, we can celebrate the 50 million that we got with shop for.
Yeah.
And the 25 million the county got for State Route 41
41.
Expressway, so that's, you know, 99 or so.
Our
billion,
arteries are changing and, you know, when you look at the aorta of the heart of the body, you know, that you gotta move the blood and you gotta move people. So same thing, very similar.
Thank you, and I don't have anything to report with that. I adjourn this meeting.